very young, but I feel that I must sometimes go back to Turkey and offer more coffee to my friends because I've gone through this 40-year period. But there's a particular, well, it's always going to change this.
Wait, that's me.
And start the...
Please, please, please.
How many cups have you had this morning?
None.
Plus?
5, but yours is better.
You have a problem.
Yes, I do.
Junkie.
Angel, you've got wings, baby.
Get that coffee out of here.
This is no coffee. This is a mocha chocolate caramel swirlicino with extra whipped cream.
I don't have to do anything but serve food.
And coffee, and muffin.
Well, there's a basic American dilemma. They're trying to find the best coffee they can ever have. Sometimes they go to Europe and they find good coffee, and here, maybe it's part of the American marketing scheme, so that they give you some kind of a coffee, so you keep looking for the better one the next day and the next day. Then some addictions do start. But I think we can find a solution to all that in the most diplomatic fashion. I think Turkish coffee is also approved by our State Department, and this is as our secretary enjoying Turkish coffee, and very appropriately she's not lifting her pinky, and this is how you make a tough stand. The more you drink coffee, the tougher you get. First of all, what is a Turkish coffee? Turkish coffee is a very unique way of preparing coffee. No other method is like Turkish coffee. So it's basically very finely powdered roast coffee beans are boiled in a pot. Jezve, you have some samples here. And with added sugar, depending on taste. And before being served in a cup where the grounds do settle. This kind of stuff. Well, there's going to be a test. Please do take notes. Now, we have to start with the bean and the ground. To have Turkish coffee, you have to go and try to purchase a coffee that is very finely ground. And there's a lot of importance to it, because the coffee, all the coffees in the world, there are one other type of coffee that's very rarely produced. Most of the coffee in the world is either a coffee Arabica or a coffee Robusta. So if I don't tell you which one has more caffeine content, can you tell me whether it's Arabica or Robusta? Well, the Robusta has more caffeine content, and the original coffee, which you see is more rounder shaped, that's a coffee Arabica, and the other one is Robusta. I mean, you might say that what's all this Robusta, that I'll settle this for you. Well, you can see that where certain types of coffee is grown, originally it is from kind of the tip of the Arabian Peninsula in Ethiopia, and Sudan is where the coffee, sort of the cherries, which is like a plant that it has 2 seeds in it, and they do grow like a bush, and it's a very sensitive plant. It has a very low resistance to drought. So most of the coffee Arabica, that's how it started in that part of the world. You see most of the darker areas where the Robusta is grown. And Robusta is a, let it happen kind of coffee. It is not that kind of labor intensive. However, still, because of its taste, 75% of the coffee grown in this world is an Arabica. I'm not going to say that just go and say, give me an Arabica coffee. Bad coffee is bad coffee. Don't, think of it just names like this. Name dropping doesn't work with coffee. And most of the coffees are a blend, which we'll get into that. And, some countries you see in the Southeast Asia start by the Dutch, and also in Latin America, in some high-grown coffee is Arabica, because Arabica likes to be in the high plains. They want kind of colder climate because they don't want to deal with the drought situation. And of course, we know Brazil produces a lot of this. It's very kind of easy to produce, let it happen, big bush kind of coffee. Now that we settled it, of course, originally coffee was coming from Al-Mocha. It's at the entrance of the Red Sea. So you see on an old map, there's a little castle. Basically, when the explorations did start, a lot of the trade in the world in spices went elsewhere by being able to go in the south of Africa. So very quickly Egypt was able to replace, or countries in this area were able to replace this trade with coffee trade. And this was again an Ottoman, is a dominion in Al-Mocha in Yemen. And they were controlling and excising tax before you enter the Red Sea for all this transportation and from Egypt to other places. And then eventually they wanted to compete with this. So the Dutch, they were able to get some plants, but they could not grow the Arabica coffee. So they started in Southeast Asia, where that's why sometimes we call the coffee a Java, because it comes from Java. Now, coffee is a very important commodity. Actually, at the time, it was the world's #1 commodity in trade. Today, it's still #2 after oil. It has a lot of similarities with oil. As we can see from Napoleon, even for Napoleon and the French, when he decided to get off his rearing horse and get on a slow in the camel, he started a campaign in the Middle East because the coffee supplies, you can replace oil in the same context, the coffee supplies were not coming true. So he said, I really have to go to Egypt, but you know, he put on top of it like a lot of cultural things. He says, we have to find the culture. He's taking a lot of scientists and artists and painters and lithographers to come with him. But actually what he was trying to do, he was trying to control the coffee trade. Now this kind of French interest in this particular area, Syria and Egypt, is still going strong. But of course, Sarkozy is gone. We don't know what other interests they still have. But believe me, their interest in this area was not only coffee, it was politically very well connected. Because Assad's father, for example, he was trained in the French Military Academy of Saint-Cyr before he became a commander of the Air Force, and then he took over the country and you know, he founded the Baas Party. So coffee is very intricately linked with politics and power in all parts of the world. Not only in the Middle East, but also in the coffee grown in South America. At a very interesting time at the beginning of the 18th century, I don't know if you're familiar with the Utrecht Agreement, the British had the basically monopoly on the slave trade. So this was the time when things were changing and a new world is forming, and there were new methods of making money, and moving these people to the Caribbean and the South America and growing like cotton, sugarcane, coffee. In a major way, the British were involved in this trade. So this was part of it, like a triangle, with bringing sort of slaves to these parts of the world and bringing goods to the mercantile exchanges in different parts of the world, and basically to London. Now, let's go back to these two beans, and I'm going to be a little bit technical. I'm going to put you to sleep now. Have you heard of melanoma? This is a different kind of melanoma. It's a chemical substance, not the stuff you know your skin in some resort town. Coffee has a lot of chemical qualities. Some of them are like they're very good for you, but the two substances in it, while you're roasting it, you create CO2 in the bean. So that's why you should not buy roasted coffee and keep it for a long period of time, and never do keep it in your fridge. Because sometimes you have these clippings in newspapers that says, you're going to keep it in your fridge and everything. Don't do that. Buy small amounts and try to roast. Buy roasted one, try to use it very quickly. So because the CO2 will disperse. Now, the CO2 would be released from the coffee grind as you are making the coffee. Now, the melanomas, the chemicals in the coffee, they like gas and they hate water. So they go attack this CO2 and they wrap it like a little bubble. And this is what forms so-called the crema, or the foam on the coffee. Now, a lot of the Turkish coffee, you see this with a little foam, and they do it with the peculiar way that they make their coffee. But I think in Turkish coffee it also serves another purpose, because it protects sort of the heat by sealing, by these bubbles. It's just sort of insulating your coffee. But there was one problem with Arabica. Arabica was a very sort of There's a lot of esters and a lot of flavors in it. But by its nature, to carry these flavors, that was based on a lot of oils. So Robusta is less oil, and the melanomas, they don't like fat. So to make a good coffee, to have the foam you like, you have to create a blend. So it has to come, some of the flavor will be coming from the Arabica, and some of the qualities of making these bubbles, and everybody says that I'm a good coffee maker, I'm a good housewife, here's my coffee, kind of foaming stuff. So let's go beyond that. Now, this is a typical utensil of the Turkish coffee making. I don't think each house should get something like this. But luckily, last week when I was in New York, we were given some slides of some of these very artistic looking utensils. But basically this is a jezve. You can see that it has a kind of flared bottom, because as you prepare it, and as you try to pour it into these individual cups, some of the silk, because of its shape, would stay in the cooking utensil. And the rest of it you wait, and so it settles down. So the Turkish coffee is made for a variety of sizes. You can say from a very small one to maybe an army-sized one. But I don't again suggest you to make more than 1 cup of coffee, or maybe 2. 3 would be the tops. Anything beyond that, I think it's going to take away from the art and style of making coffee. So here's the Turkish coffee trinity. Because of its very sensitive nature, preferably you have to start drinking your coffee by sipping some water and cleaning your palate. Because that way you will be able to sense these very sort of tiny flavor bursts in the coffee, and you can have the full effect of this. And of course you can finish it with a Turkish delight. But in one story, this coffee serving ceremony, in Ethiopia, for example, they don't export a lot of the coffee they make because they have this very religious ritual of how to serve the coffee. It will take about 2 hours for each serving, and they would like to have it done 3 times a day. So 6 hours is left, is spared, so that they can make coffee during the day in Ethiopia, and they would like to enjoy their own coffee, so you get very little coffee from Ethiopia. But the way Turkish coffee is served, there's one very important part. That somebody wants to marry a girl, they make this arrangement. The mothers would see this young girl in the Turkish bath, or saying, oh, she's beautiful and everything. And then they go to ask for her wedding hand. So in this one little story, to show you how important it is to when to drink the water, so they went there, and this is usually the first occasion where the young girl and her suitor would see each other. She would prepare and serve a coffee. As a matter of fact, while she's preparing it, she's trying to sort of, redden her cheek by the heat and everything. So she serves the coffee, and the young man drinks the coffee and starts drinking the water after that. And at this point, the father is very, very angry. He turns to the mother of the young man, and he says, Madam, please take your son and leave immediately. Your son has shown no respect to my coffee. How do I know that he would respect my daughter? So drink water first. Now, this is some of the, they turned it, of course, they turned it into art and the domestic art, and they found a lot of very lovely cups. And initially, because of the technology involved, they didn't know how to put a handle to these porcelain cups. So you would have a very elaborate metal holder that individual cups without handles were inserted, because otherwise it would be too hot. And as a reminder, please sip very small amounts and entrain a lot of air and make this sound, because it's very, very important, and it's not rude, believe me. Just don't drink water afterwards, I told you. And then again, some of the embroidered material they use as part of the serving. I realize I'm diverting from my presentation, but this was so irresistible that I received some of these images last week. So I felt like I think you should enjoy it the way I'm enjoying it now. Now, how coffee appeared in Turkey, and of course Turkey doesn't grow any coffee. They just found a way of making good coffee. It's a very enterprising act. Now, I'm going to read you so that in your ears you can have some of the Turkish from these 16th century Turkish. And I'll translate for you too. 1554 yılında Halepli Hakem ve Suriyeli Şems adında iki şahıs Tahtakale'de birer kebir dükkan açıp kahve furuşluğa başladılar. Keyfe müptela bazı yaran-ı safa, hususuyla okur yazar makulesinden nice zürafa toplanır oldu. 20'şer 30'ar yerde meclis durur oldu. Kimi kitap okur, kimi tavla ve satrançla meşgul olur, kimi nevgüfte gazeller getirip marifetten bahsolunur. This is a passage from the history of the Pechevi. This was a young gentleman who was a historian of the Ottoman times. His Pechevi name suggests that he is from Hungary, the city of Pech, but he was related to a very important Ottoman sort of prime ministerial family of the Köprülüs, and his father was also a governor of Hungary. So it was in a time close to the first period that we see in the citadel, below the citadel, the Tahtel Kale, that two people from